We are looking at the VARC solutions for CAT 21, slot 3. The first passage. Now, the first passage, you could call it, refers to the language instinct. Okay, now let's look at the key points from this particular passage. The first point that is made here is that language is an innate ability. That it is not something that is learned, it comes by birth. This idea was given by Noam Chomsky first, but he gave it in a very opaque language, which is very difficult for people to understand, nearly incomprehensible. But now, Chomsky's colleague Pinker, he is basically written it in a very simple language so that everybody else can understand. So effectively, somewhere in the human brain, there is a set of circuits which have been programmed so that they understand language instinctively. Then the point made here is that there is a difference, a few differences between Chomsky and Pinker. One example is given here. Mr. Pinker looks at language within the framework of Darwin's natural selection. He says that this is an advantage that humans had. Other human-like apes, like chimpanzees, did not have this kind of an advantage. So on that point, he differs with Chomsky. Okay. Then in the last paragraph, you have criticism from behavioral psychologists and anthropologists. Why? Because they would like to believe that culture is something that can be learned, not something that comes by birth. So if culture comes by birth, then it may lead to concepts that some cultures are superior to other cultures, right? Which again supports racism. But Mr. Pinker specifically says, look, all languages which are spoken in this world are almost alike, sufficiently alike. Okay, so whatever diversity we talk about between the different cultures of the world is superficial and minor. The similarities are much more, which means that, look, we are all one. Humanity is one, and that universality makes it non-racist. Now let's look at question number 1. On the basis of information given in the passage, Pinker and Chomsky may disagree with each other. Okay, where did we see this? It's a direct question. It is given here. Unlike Chomsky, Pinker firmly places the wiring of the brain for language within the framework of natural selection. So Pinker's theory is within the framework of natural selection. Chomsky's is not, and that is the difference, right? So the Darwinian explanatory paradigm for language, that is one area of difference. Now, if you look at the other choices, universal grammar, both will agree. It is a Chomsky concept explained by Pinker also. Language acquisition skill of human being is inborn. That is also an idea that both will agree with. Language instinct is the simple, which is again the basic concept. So 1, 2, and 4, clearly Chomsky and Pinker will have no difference. The only difference mentioned in the page passage, which is directly given, is option 3. So we are looking at slot 3, question number 2. According to the passage, all the following are true about the language instinct except. Okay. Now, if you look at it, 1, not all intelligent primates are gifted with it. 3, all intelligent primates are gifted with it. If you look at 1 and 3, clearly only 1 can be true. And what are we looking for? We are looking for something that is not true, right? So 1 and 3, because they contradict each other, only one of them can be true. Let's find out which one is not true. And that is given here. It is again the same place. He, as in Pinker, effectively disposes of all claims that intelligent non-human primates like chimps have any abilities to learn and use language. Okay, so not all intelligent primates are gifted with it is a true statement. All intelligent primates are gifted is a false statement, and we are looking for a false statement. All of the following are true except. Now look at the others. It confers an evolutionary reproductive advantage. It's given right here in the same paragraph. The language instinct must have given them a selective reproductive advantage over the competitors. So 4 is true. Developments in neuroscience have increased its acceptance. That is there. The language instinct gathered persuasive data from diverse fields such as cognitive neuroscience. So again, 2 is directly given. So 3 is the answer. So now we are looking at passage 1, question 3. From the passage, it can be inferred that all the following are true about Pinker's book, The Language Instinct, except. Now let's quickly look at each of the choices. Pinker writes in a different style from Chomsky. Is this true? Yes. How did Chomsky write? So opaque, nearly incomprehensible even to some scholars. Comparatively, Pinker is brilliant, he is witty, and he has brought Chomsky's findings to every man. That is, the common man can understand. So 1 is true. Draws from different psychology theories. Okay. Draws extensively from Chomsky's proposition. This would definitely be true. Disagrees with Chomsky on certain grounds. This we've already solved. The first question was related to a disagreement. Now look at 2. It draws from behavioral psychology theories. Now there are 2 ways to look at it. What does it draw from? Cognitive neuroscience, developmental psychology, and speech therapy. So it is not given that it is draws from behavioral psychology. The second part is that some behavioral psychologists have criticized Pinker's theory. Right? Therefore, 2 is the answer. Right. Now, which of the following statements best summarizes the author's position about Pinker's book? Okay, so what does author think about Pinker's book? Let's look at the answer choices. The evolutionary and deterministic framework of Pinker's book makes us racist. Does he agree? The universality of the language instinct counters claims that Pinker's book is racist. Now, again, you will see this. 1 and 2 are opposing each other. So, only one of them can be true. The book is either racist or not racist. So, let's take a look. On this racism issue, Mr. Pinker stresses one point that should allay all such fears. What fears? That this theory will lead to racist conclusions. What is that theory? He says that 4,000 to 6,000 languages that are there today are sufficiently alike. Most of the world's cultures, they have more similarity than differences. And the differences are superficial and minor. Racial differences are only skin deep. That's a pun. Fundamentally, humankind is united. That is the theme. So clearly, it is not racist. And the universality of the language instinct, which is the fundamental unity of humanity, that is a reason why the claims of racism can be refuted. Now look at the other 2 choices. Culture and environment play a key role in acquisition of language. This is against what the passage says. Chomsky and Pinker clearly are saying that the language instinct is not something that is learned. It is inborn. We are born with it. Anatomical developments like voice box play a key role in language acquisition skills. It is not true. It is given in this part of the passage. It says it is not that chimps lack the vocal apparatus to speak. It is that the brains are unable to produce or use grammar. Okay, so the vocal apparatus is not enough. Chimpanzees have it, but they don't have the brain capacity to understand the rules of grammar. Therefore, they cannot develop and use language. So we are looking at slot 3, CAT 2021. This is the second passage. Let's quickly understand the keywords of the passage. Okay, the passage, the first paragraph of the passage is more like an introduction. It says that in X-Men comics, traditionally the villains were giant robots. But later, new threats came in, new villains. Who are the new villains? Nano Sentinels. These are small, tiny robots which invaded the body at the microscopic level. Now, this is fiction, which is part of the comics. Now, he's connecting it to real life. He says that these small robots, which are odd and different, they are at least partially coming true. Okay, researchers are making autonomous devices, which nothing but robots, which are tiny, but they can be extremely powerful. How do these robots become so small? Because unlike traditional robots, which are made of mechanical parts, they are made of molecular parts. But fundamentally, they are the same. Okay. And then a lot of details of what kind of materials and how they would work and so on. Second, he says that the kind of robots which are so very, very small and could go through our bodies can be very useful. He says, okay, that is not the kind of robots that I read about in the comic books, but that's the kind of robots that I want. I'm especially keen on the nanometer scale soft robots that could you one day swim through the. Okay. Let's take a look at the questions. Which of the following scenarios, if false, could be seen as supporting the passage? Now think about it. Which of the following scenarios, if false, could be seen as supporting the passage? If it is false, it supports the passage. If it is true, then it undermines the passage. So we are looking, so to avoid this double negative, let's look at it as if a statement is true, it should oppose the passage. If it is false, it will support. Okay, so we are looking at a statement which, if true, will actually undermine the passage. So any answer choice which is consistent or supporting the passage, we can eliminate. Some hydrogels turn sticky when electric current is passed, and this is very useful. That is directly given. There is a different kind of hydrogel that becomes sticky when exposed to low voltage zap, and it can be used in the feet or wheels of a robot. So is one given? Yes. Is it consistent? Yes. So eliminate. Robots made of smart material are likely to be part of everyday lives in the future. That's the same thing that the author is saying. Okay, so that is also consistent. There are two kinds of molecules used to make non-robots. One that reacts positively to water, other that reacts negatively. Assembled from two kinds of molecules, some that love water and some that avoid it. Again, that is consistent. So answer must be 4. Nano sentinel-like robots are likely to be used to inject people, convert them into robots cell by. This is the science fiction fantasy given in the comic book. That is not going to happen. Okay, so 4 is the one that should be false. If it is false, it will support the passage. Which of the following best summarizes the central point of the passage? So one way is, if I look at the central point, what does the passage talk about? He says, look, certain things which were earlier only considered science fiction, were present in comic books, are now becoming reality. And specifically, he's talking about small nano-sized robots, which can have very useful applications. Look at the choices. The field of robotics is likely to feature more and more in comics like the New X-Men. Okay. What will feature in comics is not relevant. Robots will use nanobots on their feet and wheel to climb walls and move on ceiling. Is this correct? Yes. 2 is factually correct. But is that the central idea? Not really. 2 is one specific application, right? That hydrogel application that is given here, different kind of hydrogel. It can help them climb walls, but that's only one particular type of application. So that is not the central idea. Nanorobots made from molecules that react to water are useful. Again, given. Some love water, some avoid it, and that allows them to interact with water and move. So 2 and 3 both are factually correct, but they are very specific points. They are not the central idea. Once the stuff of science fiction, nanorobots now feature in cutting-edge scientific research. This is correct. What was once considered science fiction has now become reality, and it is being used and developed in scientific research. Right. Which of the following statements best captures the sense of the first paragraph? Okay, we're only looking at the first paragraph from here to here. Now, this is a question where there's some controversy. A lot of students have got back and said that, look, this question is not clear, and that, you know, none of the options, which is option 2, is given, and that should be the right answer. So let's spend some time. So students who are complaining, they have a certain point, but I'm not sure that it is enough. Okay, but let me explain. What does this passage talk about? He says X-Men comics, traditionally the villains were giant robots called Sentinels. But suddenly these mechanical overlords spawned a new threat. So the Sentinels, which are giant robots, they created something called nano Sentinels. So Sentinels were the original villains. They created nano Sentinels. What exactly are nano Sentinels? Tiny robots invaded our body at a microscopic level, and any human who's infected slowly gets converted to a machine. Okay, so that's it. Now, people who were infected by nano sentinel robots became mutants who are called X-Men. This is wrong. X-Men are mutant heroes. Those who infected, they become machines. They don't become X-Men. So one is clearly wrong. Tiny sentinels called X-Men infected people. X-Men are not tiny sentinels. Okay, X-Men are mutant heroes. So 1 and 3 are easily eliminated. Now the entire fight is between 2 and 4. X-Men were mutant heroes who now had to battle tiny robots called nano sentinels. Tiny robots called nano sentinels are the villains. That much is fine. Now the only question is, X-Men are heroes. How can we say that? Right? Now the point is, the name of the comics is X-Men comics. And then immediately he says our mutant heroes. Is that enough? Can we therefore infer that our mutant heroes are X-Men? So that is essentially where the student objection is. They are saying that, look, yes, in real life, those who have read the comics or watched the movies, they know that X-Men are mutant heroes. Otherwise, how can somebody who does not have prior knowledge, only from this particular sentences, can they make the inference or not? That is the question. Now, unfortunately, any passage that is written involves some amount of acceptance that people know what is called as pop culture. But even otherwise, when we say our mutant heroes, and the previous sentence, we have said X-Men comics. So I think that is good enough to say that heroes here mean X-Men. Okay, so I'm sympathetic to the students who have complained and who have got it wrong, especially because none of the choices are here. But I would still say that CAT, the answer choice which is given as 4 is correct. Yes, they could have framed the question better, but among the choices given, the best is option 4. And while, yes, students have objected to it, I don't think CAT is going to change the answer choice for this. Now, which of the following statements, if true, would be the most direct extension of the arguments in the passage? Sentinel robos. First of all, Sentinel robos is coming from paragraph 1, which is basically the villains of the X-Men comics. Will be used in warfare to cause large-scale destructive mutations among civilians. This is entirely science fiction. That is not going to happen. 1 centimeter blobs of gel that have nanorobots in them will be used to send messages. Okay. So that 1 centimeter blobs of gel can have nanorobots in them, but used to send messages is the part that is not working. Some of them could one day swim through our bloodstream to heal us. They could clean up pollutants in waters or fold themselves into different kinds of vehicles for us to drive. All possible applications given here. Okay, but sending messages is not given. X-Men may be created. Okay, again, the minute you come to X-Men, this is fiction. Passage is talking about serious scientific research in terms of applications. In the future, robots will be used to search and destroy diseases even in the deepest recesses of the human body. That is given here. Some of them could one day swim through our bloodstream to heal us. Same thing is given here in the last paragraph. I, as the author, I am especially keen on nanometer scale soft robots that could one day swim through our bodies. The author doesn't say why he or she is keen on these kind of robots, but the inference is that if they could go through our body, they can be useful in detecting diseases and delivering medication, in some ways curing us. So we have eliminated 1 and 3 very easily because there's absolute fiction. 2 and 4, the messages part is not clear. 4 is very clear. Therefore, we'll go with, right, we are looking at CAT 2021, slot 3, VARC. This is passage 3. Now, every slot of CAT had one passage which was completely crazy, right? This is like that one bouncer per over kind of stuff, right? For slot 3, this was the one about unconscious. Okay, so let's still do our best. And honestly, I have read this now 4 or 5 times. I still do not fully understand it. It's fine. Let's see how best we can cope with this particular passage. So it starts by talking about today, unconscious as a term is reasonably common. But when it started, that is between 1700 and 1900, this was a completely new term. Now it has become a commonly used and understood term, but it was developed in the 1700 and 1900 as a completely new term. And for a long time, the meaning was not clear. There were a lot of fleeting ideas. It was associated with fleeting ideas, shifting conceptions for a long time, until finally it became fixed and defined in specialized terms. So today, unconscious is defined in very specific terms in medical psychology and psychoanalysis. But for a long time, it did not have a clear-cut meaning, or it was never well defined. The idea of what is unconscious kept shifting and changing. Then, that's the first paragraph. The second paragraph, it says that the vocabulary concerning soul and mind increased enormously in the 19th century. A lot of new words and terms came in discussing the mind and the soul. What happens at that time? When that happens, then it leads to a change in understanding of the meanings of even existing expressions and traditional words. And then new ideas, like newly coined terms, they become connected to a wide range of practices, experiences, and issues. Okay, this is not very clear, but the example makes it slightly clear. So the drawn out attempt to approach and define the unconscious, right? From 1700 to 1900, there was no clear definition for unconsciousness. People were trying to understand and define it. In that process, it was connected to various wide-ranging experiences, issues like spiritualists, psychical researchers, psychiatrists, alienists, hallucination, delirium, melancholia, different kinds of people, different kinds of concepts. Everything got connected to the unconscious, to the idea of the unconsciousness. A lot of that is examples here of the wide range of people, occupations, issues that got connected to the concept of unconsciousness. And a lot of them started in the end of the 18th century and became stronger in the early parts of the 19th century. Now, this last paragraph is again tricky. When you try to give expression to a latent conception, here, what is the latent conception? Unconsciousness. And vaguely independently. Why vaguely independently? Because a range of people from different disciplines are trying to define what is unconsciousness. So various lines of thought can be brought together by some novel term. So you're trying to find, okay, how can I bring together these thoughts, come to some kind of a definition? That definition will give you some satisfaction. Okay, now we know what is unconsciousness, and it can be a stimulus for further discussion. So which is what Hartman tried to do in 1869. He tried to define the term unconsciousness, trying to focalize many stray thoughts, trying to bring them to focus. Too many very different thoughts, he tried to bring them together in one definition, but it did not work. It did not work because he extended the reach into every possible area of organic, inorganic, spiritual, intellectual. So he stretched it too much, trying to take the concept of unconsciousness into every possible field. So it actually failed. Okay. So hopefully you understood at least half of the passage by now. Okay. Let's go to the questions. Question 9 is a very specific question. Enrichments of literary intellectual language. Where is it given? Here. Enrichment of literary and intellectual language led to an altered understanding of the meanings of that underlie time-honored expressions and traditional kind. Traditional words, well-known expressions, their meaning changed. That's all it says. Okay, the meaning of time-honored expressions were changed by innovations in literary and intellectual language. This seems okay to me, but let me check the other options. All the options, okay. Time-honored expressions and traditional catchwords were enriched by literary and intellectual language. Now, between 1 and 3, 1 is logical. The meanings were changed. Okay, what enrichment happened is language became enriched. The meanings of certain phrases did not become enriched. Similarly, literary and intellectual language was altered. The language is not altered by the expressions. It is the meaning of the expressions that got altered by the language. So 4 is eliminated. If 4 is eliminated, 2 goes. Then it is between 1 and 3. And therefore, 1 is a very straightforward thing. Altered understanding of the meanings. The meanings of expressions were changed. Makes perfect sense. Option 1. Question 10. Now, this is a tricky one. Which of the following sets of words is closest to mapping the main arguments of the passage? Now, if I look at where the passage starts, the unconsciousness bursts the shell of conventional language, coined as it had been to embody fleeting ideas and shifting conceptions. So it is talking about the term unconsciousness and its effect on language. Okay, so it starts with language. It doesn't talk about the science behind the unconsciousness. Okay, so I would eliminate imagination. It is not starting with imagination. Language, I like it. Unconscious, maybe. Literary language comes later. So then if I also look at what kind of elimination can I do? Insanity, for example, just mentioned once. Few, if any, spoke in medical terms about the affinity between creative genius and the hallucinations of the insane. Okay, so insanity, except for this one mention of the word insane, is not really there anywhere. Similarly, dreams, not really there. It is mentioned, for example, the physiologist and physician who puzzled over sleep, dreams, sleepwalking. Except that dreams is not a critical part. So you have to work by elimination. So if you start with language, then unconsciousness and psychoanalysis, that is one option. The other is you start with unconsciousness, go into latent conception, and then dreams. I don't think dreams is an important set of arguments. There is no argument regarding the. Similarly, magnetism is a small thing. Universal flow of magnetic fluids, which is magnetizer. So this magnetism is one of the many fields that were touched by the concept of unconsciousness, right? So I'll repeat, I'm eliminating dreams and therefore 2. I'm eliminating 3 for the word insanity and 4 for the use of the word magnetism. That leaves me with, okay, language unconsciousness. This is nice. Psychoanalysis looks a little odd, but you will understand finally the concept of unconsciousness, which did not have a clear-cut definition, finally was defined in specific terms in medical psychology and psychoanalysis. Right? So not a perfect answer, but by elimination, one is the best possible answer that we can take for this particular question. All the following statements may be considered valid inferences from the passage except. So basically we are saying all the following can be inferred from the passage except. Let's look at the questions. Without the linguistic developments of the 19th century, the growth of the understanding of soul and mind may not have happened. Looks okay to me. It says that the vocabulary concerning the soul and mind increased enormously. And enrichment of literary and intellectual language led to altered understanding. Seems okay to me. Unrelated practices seem to be treated as related to each other as knowledge of the mind grew. New conceptions in the 19th century could provide new knowledge because of the establishment of fields such as anesthesiology. Now, this is a problem. Right? So what happened here, if you look at the second paragraph, the drawn out attempt to approach and define the unconsciousness brought together the spiritualist and the psychical researcher of borderline phenomena, the psychiatrist, the magnetizer, and everybody else. So it is not that anesthesiology contributed to the conception. It is the other way around, cause and effect wise. 18th century thinkers were the first to perceive a connection between creative genius and insanity. Yes, it's a direct question. Sorry, direct concept here. Before 1790, few, if any, spoke in medical terms of the affinity between creative genius and, so it started in the 18th century. 3 is the answer that I will take, because of the establishment of fields such as anesthesiology, saying that this fields gave rise to the new conception. No, that is not right. The new conception gave rise to or brought together a wide range of fields. The others are directly given. We have seen why 4th is directly given here. Okay. Now, 1 is given right in the end. Language, when the vocab concerning soul and mind increased enormously, it led to an altered understanding of the meanings of expressions and traditional. Similarly, unrelated practices treated as related to each other. This is also given. A wide range of area. Think about it. We are talking about alienist, psychical researcher who specializes in haunted houses, mediums, ghosts, etc. That then the surgeon, the magnetizer, who claims that universally there's a flow of magnetic equilibrium. Psychologist, physician, neurologist, all kinds of fields are brought to. Therefore, 2 is also correct. 3 is the. Which one of the following best describes what the passage is about? Again, this is a central idea kind of a question. Now, you should, unless you're very sure of picking the right answer, you should look at elimination. Now, if you look at what the passage really is about, it is about how to define the unconsciousness. For a long time, it was not defined clearly. Lot of ideas and very large number of threads were connected to unconsciousness. In fact, here, when Mr. Hartman tried to extend it, it attempted to focalize many stray thoughts, but eventually proved fruitless because he extended its reach to every realm of organic, inorganic, spiritual, intellectual, and instinctive existence. Okay, so psychical research, no, it is just one part of it. The discovery of unconsciousness was not discovered as a part of the human mind. So that is not. So 2 and 4 get eliminated easily. The collating of diverse ideas under a single term, unconsciousness, this kind of comes close to what we did, right? So many places you will see this. Fleeting ideas, shifting conceptions, whole host of seemingly unrelated issues, practices, experiences. And in the end, extended reach to every realm of organic, inorganic, etc. And here again, you have so many different sets of people and concepts being connected to the unconsciousness. Right? Now, one you will also see, it talks about vocabulary of the soul and mind, does not even mention unconsciousness. And it says there is a diverse processes, but it does not show how they can be connected together. So 1 is wrong. I would go with 3. Okay, we are looking at CAT 2021 slot 3 VARC. This is passage 4, which we can call as timekeeping and entropy. Keeping time accurately comes with a price. So that's a claim made. Now this claim will be substantiated. So the maximum accuracy of a clock is directly connected to how much disorder or entropy it creates. And that is explained through an example of a silicon nitride membrane that they use. What the researchers said that when they increase the clock's accuracy, heat was produced in the system. And when heat is produced, the entropy increases. So that is what the author meant when they said that maximum accuracy comes at a price. So when you try to be more and more accurate, it creates more heat, thereby increases the entropy of the system. Third paragraph talks about, he says the concept of increase of time may be related to arrow of time. What is arrow of time? Arrow of time is that time only flows forward, not in reverse. Why? Because the total amount of energy, entropy in the universe is constantly increasing. Okay, so if you want time to flow backwards, the entropy should go down, and that is not likely to happen. Therefore, it is defined that, or it has been speculated, hypothesized that arrow of time will only flow in one direction. Now, next paragraph says, this concept of entropy puts a limit to the accuracy of the clock. Okay, it doesn't mean, so if you want more accuracy, it will lead to higher entropy. But the reverse is not true. Just because you have high entropy does not mean that you will get higher accuracy. And for that, he gives an analogy with a car. To explain the analogy simply, what it basically says that if you go fast, you can say that you will use more fuel. But just because you use more fuel does not mean you will automatically go more fast, because there may be inefficiencies, that fuel might be wasted. Now, then the last paragraph puts some limitations, saying that we are not yet sure that results are universal. We haven't tested it for different types of clocks. For example, we have not tested it for atomic clocks. And it can be important for atomic clocks and quantum computers, because in quantum computers, accuracy and temperature both are critical. Let's look at the question. It is a bit like using the fuel in a car. Just because I'm using more fuel doesn't mean I'm going faster. What's the purpose of example? It's an analogy. You're comparing clocks with cars. So in cars, what you're saying, if I go fast, it means I will use more fuel. But the reverse is not true. Similarly, in clocks, we are saying, if I increase accuracy, then definitely entropy will increase. But the reverse is not. Okay. So if you go faster in a car, you will consume more fuel, but reverse is not true. Same way, increased entropy does not mean greater accuracy. Greater accuracy means more entropy, but not reverse. So that is perfect. One is a perfect answer. Let's look at true. The further you go in a car, the more fuel you use. Now, this is completely changing the point. You're talking about distance, not the... Okay, faster or further. The further you go in a clock, the more fuel you use. In the same way, faster you go in a car, less time you will use. Again, completely illogical. We are not talking about the time of journey in a car. Okay. If you measure the speed of a car with a grandfather clock, completely obscene. You're bringing together what is an analogy. You're comparing clocks with cars, doesn't mean that you will measure the speed of the car using a clock. The further and faster you go in a clock, the greater the fuel you will use, the greater the amount of heat and the entropy. I think the car example is not about entropy at all. Car example is connecting fuel and speed compared to accuracy and entropy for cars. Therefore, one is the best answer. Which one of the following set of words and phrases serves best as keywords for the passage? Now, this type of questions were introduced last year and they have been given in multiple passages. So understand this carefully. If you look at the set of ideas that are coming in this particular passage, it talks about accuracy, time, accuracy of measuring time, and how it is connected to entropy. Right? Which is given in 3. Measuring time. The concept is measuring time. Within measuring time, accuracy and entropy are directly proportional. The more accuracy you try to go for, the more the entropy will go up, which is effectively the summary of the passage. But let's understand why the other answers are wrong. One is electric current, quantum effects. Only thing we have about quantum is in quantum computers, accuracy and temperature both are important. Quantum effects haven't really been mentioned. Second, one does not mention entropy at all, which is an important concept. Okay. Similarly, electric current is not important. It's not a concept. It is just one. Electric current is used in measuring of time in the experiment that they did. Okay. Second, silicon nitride. What is silicon nitride? It's not an important concept. It is just the membrane used in the experiment was made of silicon nitride. It's not critical. Similarly, grandfather clock is again just an example. You used grandfather clock to say that just because something uses more energy does not mean it is more accurate. A grandfather clock is inefficient, therefore it uses more energy, does not mean it is more accurate. Okay. Now again, membrane. Membrane is just part of the experiment. It is not an important keyword. Similarly, arrow of time is actually just mentioned once. Okay, arrow of time is not really being debated here. It is mentioned once saying that, look, the constantly increasing entropy of the universe is a possible reason why arrow of time moves in one direction. So by elimination or by selection, option 3. Right. The author makes all the following arguments in the passage except. Now this is a controversial question. Right. Lot of debate on whether the cat answer key given by the cat by the cat website is correct or not. Now I disagree with the answer. Okay, and I'll give me my explanation. I'll also tell you what my answer is and what the cat answer is and leave it to you. The author makes all the following arguments in the passage except. So what are we looking for? We are looking for an argument that the author does not make. Right? So if there is an argument that the author has made, we can eliminate it. We are looking for authorization. The relationship between accuracy and entropy may not apply to all clocks. Is it an argument the author has made? Yes. We cannot be sure that results are universal. There are many types of clocks for which relation between accuracy and entropy hasn't been tested. So one can be eliminated. Researchers have found that heat produced in a system is a price paid for the increased accuracy of measurement. Now this is given here, right? Researchers found that as they increased the clock's accuracy, the heat produced grew, increasing the entropy of the surroundings. So it is given here. You may say that this is what the researchers have found, but the author has quoted the researchers. And this seems to be the central idea here. For some reason, Cat has given this as the answer. Anyway, there is no difference in the accuracy between inefficient grandfather clock and atomic clock. This cannot be an argument that the author has made. Okay, where did we have grandfather clock concept? Here he says that it doesn't mean that a clock that creates the most possible entropy would be maximal accurate. The concept that we discussed, we said higher accuracy implies higher entropy, but the reverse, having high entropy does not mean high accuracy. That is where an example is given of grandfather clock, where he says that a grandfather clock isn't more precise than an atomic clock, a large inefficient grandfather's clock. So in a way, he is hinting that grandfather clock is likely to be inaccurate. He says it is not more precise than atomic clock, but he is hinting that it is likely to be less precise. So to say that there is no difference in accuracy cannot be an argument that the author made. So I would go with 3. Cat has given 2 as the answer. In designing clocks for quantum computers, both precision and heat have to be taken into account. This is correct. This is given here in the end. In quantum computers, accuracy and temperature both are crucial. So 1 and 4 eliminated. Between 2 and 4 is the dispute. To me, it looks like 3 is an argument because we are looking at what is an argument author has not made. Has the author ever made an argument in this passage that for these 2 types of clocks, there is no difference in accuracy? He has not. What about 2? He seems to be an argument that he has made. Now, we can always dispute. For example, if you say that find a way to justify 2, I can. For example, when you say keeping time accurately comes with a price. So effectively what we have is there is a connection between accuracy and entropy. Can that be literally called a price to be paid? You can dispute that, but that really looks like nitpicking. Okay, so 2 looks like a primary argument that has been made here. Therefore, I would go with 3. But to be clear, CAT website has given 2 as an answer. Yes, I have objected. Others also have raised objection. So let's see when the actual results come. None of the following statements can be inferred except. Okay, again, one of these double negatives that CAT is playing a lot these days. None of the following can be inferred except. Basically, they are saying, look, which one can be inferred? 3 of them cannot be inferred. 1 can be inferred. Find out which one. Look at the choices. The arrow of time has not been tested. Now, this looks tempting, but arrow of time is a different concept. What is not been tested is relationship between accuracy and entropy. That is different from arrow of time. Okay, it's a tempting answer. There are students who have got it wrong because of that. Right? Arrow of time is what is to be tested is whether accuracy attempts entropy. What is arrow of time? Why time flows only in one direction. It is connected to entropy, but that is not, and it's a why time flows in one direction cannot be tested. It's a concept, at least. The given current level of understanding and equipment, we can't test it. Okay. Second, quantum computers are likely to produce more heat, more entropy because of the emphasis on their clock's accuracy. Possible? Just check. When researchers compared their results with theoretical models developed for clocks that rely on quantum effects, the relationship between accuracy and entropy seemed to be same. So it's possible that it will produce more. Grandfather clocks are likely to produce less heat, less entropy because they are not accurate. No. As we said, if you are more accurate, more heat. The reverse is not true. In fact, the author hints that because they are large, because they are inefficient, they will end up producing more heat, even if they are not accurate. A clock with nanometer thick membrane has been made to vibrate, producing electric current. Now, this is the key. It has been vibrated by an electric current. The electric current is used to make the membrane vibrate. It is not membrane producing electric. So that's a very close call. So take this out. You are left with 2. Right. We're looking at a para summary question. People view idleness as a sin and industriousness as a virtue. So this is the viewpoint. And what it has led to is that people have an unsatisfactory relationship with jobs. They don't like their jobs. It has become a way for them to keep busy, even if the work is meaningless. So the work is meaningless. They're not enjoying it, but they have to value hard work. And that is the reason the relationship with the work is not good. Then there is an opposing view, which says that hard work, this belief in hard work has actually improved our life. It has created prosperity for us. Right? So there are 2 particular opposing viewpoints. Now look at the choices. While the idealization of hard work has pushed people into meaningless jobs and endless activity, it has also led to tremendous social benefits. So the both viewpoints are covered in this particular aspect. Looks okay to me, but let's look at the other choices. Despite some detractors, hard work is essential for today, and it makes life easy. Now, this basically more or less pushes the second viewpoint, that hard work is a good thing, it's essential, and so on. It doesn't give you the first viewpoint. Similarly, hard work has overtaken all aspects of our life. This is again an extreme statement. but it is important that people reserve their leisure time for some idleness. So the passage does not say that people have to be idle. Okay. Similarly, some people believe that hard work has glorified to the extent it has become meaningless and led to greater idleness. So hard work has not led to greater idleness. So I would eliminate this. I would eliminate the second and the third, and one being the correct answer, which properly gives you both the viewpoints. Right? The second one more or less pushes the second viewpoint, that hard work is a good thing. It doesn't talk about the first viewpoint. Okay. The second one, it goes off topic, but saying that people should reserve some leisure time for idleness. It's not saying that people should remain idle. Similarly, the third one again says that hard work has led to greater idleness, which is again contradicting what the passage is saying, which is why we are left with option 1. Question 18 is another para summary question. Okay, let's look at the passage first. The human mind is wired to see patterns. Okay, so whatever information comes in, it is stored. All the past experiences, all the interactions that we have is stored in the memory. And then what happens? What we call as intuition draws from this memory, uses the patterns of the past for decisions going forward. So what we call as intuition is actually based on data. People assume that intuition is the opposite of data-based decision making, but it is not true. Intuition is actually based on data. It draws from all the information that the brain has processed and stored from previous experiences. Okay, so these automatic processes are actually faster than rational thought. But intuition draws from decades of diverse qualitative experiences. That is actually even better than what big data does. Look at it. Intuition is infinitely richer than big data, which is based on rational thought, accomplishes more than what big data can. Okay. So we are basically saying that intuition is based on automatic. So while infinitely richer is a bit of an extreme statement here, accomplishes more than what big data can, which is given in the paragraph. What one does not explain is how intuition works. Okay, so I would say one is not wrong, but it is not complete, because the first part, which is intuition draws from previous experiences which are stored in memory, that part is not there. Intuition draws from deep memory and may not be related to data. Now, this is a problem. Because it is actually based on data. Intuitive decisions are based on data. So this part is problematic here. Intuitions are neurochemical firings based on pattern recognition and draw on a rich and vast database of experience. This looks correct. Intuitions are automatic processes faster than rational thought, so decisions based on them are better. Again, this is an extreme option. Just because they're faster, are they better? And are they better for all kinds of scenarios? So I would go with 3. So there's nothing fundamentally wrong with 1. It is that 3 is a better option because 1 does not explain how intuition works, which is a critical part of the passage. 2 is clearly wrong when it says intuition may not be related to data. 4th makes the assumption that because it is faster, it is better, which is not supported by the evidence. Therefore, I would go with 3. Okay. Question 19 is an odd one out sentence. Now here we look for pairs and connections between sentences and also try to understand what is the central idea. Because that 1 out of the 5 sentences, which is an odd one out, is slightly different from the central idea. So let's take a look. One says they often include a foundation course in navigating capitalism with Chinese characteristics, have replaced typical cases from US corporates with a focus on how Western theories apply to Chinese local firms. Okay. Now, who is they? Now, here we have the best Chinese business schools, and here we have Western schools. So this they can apply to Chinese business schools or Western business schools. But it looks more likely to be Chinese business schools. Why? Because they are looking at capitalism from Chinese characteristics. Okay, the cases also have been changed. The focus is on how Western theories apply to Chinese local firms. So it looks like that they reference in one applies to Chinese business schools given in two. But okay, let's spend a little more time before let's look at the other sentences before we come to a final conclusion. For students, a big draw is a chance to rub shoulders with the captains of China's private sector. That means students of these business schools, they are able to connect to the leaders of Chinese industry, private sector. Now look at it. Again, their business courses. There could mean either best Chinese schools or Western schools. But look at it. They cater to growing demand from China. And China Incorporated, which is the Chinese companies, have become global, they've become richer, and they're ready to recruit from this Sino-centric student body. That means the student body is primarily Chinese. So in a way, this entire paragraph seems to be how Chinese business schools are adapting to cater to the need of Chinese students and Chinese private sector, which means that 2 seems to be a better option. If 2 is a better option, 2 and 1 are connected. And then 5 and 4 are connected, right? China Incorporated is recruiting from these business schools. Why? Because the student body is mainly Chinese. And therefore, students are getting a chance to directly connect with Chinese private sector. So, and here, the best Chinese B schools are trying to become distinct. They're trying to be unique. How are they trying to be unique? The example is given in 1. Therefore, 3 would be the odd one. 3 talks about Western schools are offering double degrees, and that has boosted the prestige of their Chinese partner. This is an unrelated idea. Right? So 19 is 3. Okay. Question 20, the third of the para summary questions. Brazil's growth rate has been low, yet most Brazilians would say that their financial situation has improved. Now, this is a claim that is being made. Now, the question is why? Why would Brazilians say that their financial situation has improved? Because incomes are increasing, minimum wages are higher, and unemployment is low. So the reasons why Brazilians feel that their situation has improved is given. So inequality is reducing and middle class is growing. But despite recent improvements, it is still painfully unequal, with poor Brazilians paying the biggest share of their income in taxes and getting the least back. So here we are saying, look, there have been some improvement. People are perceiving the improvement, but there are still problems. The problems continue. Now look at the choices. Good economic indicators. This itself is a problem because the growth rate has been low. Okay. Has masked the unfair taxation of poor that is likely to destabilize the Brazilian economy in the next. This is extreme. Far-fetched. The paragraph nowhere says that the Brazilian economy is going to be destabilized. So I'll eliminate 1. Most Brazilians feel that they have benefited from recent economic events. That's correct. But the poor continue to be dealt unfairly, which is also correct. So the first part is why Brazilians feel that they have actually benefited. The second part, why the poor are still being unfairly treated. So 2 looks okay to me. Look at 3. Economic reforms have benefited many Brazilians. That's correct. They are unaware of the impending problems from rising inequalities in the society. There are 2 problems here. One is inequality has reduced falling inequality. It is still high, but it is falling. So you cannot call it rising inequality. Similarly, it does not talk about any specific problems which are going to come in the future. So 3 is eliminated. With rising incomes, falling unemployment, most Brazilians are misled into thinking that economy is doing. This misled problem is a problem here. Okay, so there are 2 problems with 4. One is this being misled. They are not misled. Really, they have benefited. Like higher minimum wages is a good thing. Income rising is a good thing. Unemployment being low is a good thing. So that is not misleading. Actually, they have benefited. Much more work is required. There is still unfairness in the system, but we cannot say that they have been misled. The second thing is 4 does not talk about something very important, which is the last sentence. How the poor are being treated unfairly with respect to taxation. Therefore, 4 is eliminated. That gives you option 2. Question 21 is a parajumble question. 4 sentences. We need to find the right order. Look for pairs. In parajumbles, first always look for pairs. Right? Now, look at the first one. Businesses find automation as a big asset in increasing productivity and efficiency. Okay, so automation basically deals with things like robots. That more detailed explanation is given in 2. In the recent years, robotics have increasing impact on unemployment, not just of manual labor, as computers are handling white collar and services. So the but here basically is a contrast. 2 is negative, right? So robotics had a negative impact because unemployment is a problem. But what is the positive impact? The positive impact is productivity is higher and efficiency is higher. And because you are connecting one positive and one negative, you have the but here. Therefore, 1 to 2 is a pair. Now, for years, politicians have promised workers that they would bring back their jobs by clamping down on trade, offshoring, and immigration. Economists based on research say that the bigger threat to jobs is not globalization, but automation. How are 3 and 4 connected? Trade, offshore manufacturing, and immigration are all connected to globalization. So for many years, people used to believe that globalization is the cause of job loss. People are losing jobs because of globalization. Therefore, politicians have said that, look, we will try to cut down globalization so that your jobs will be protected. But now you see that there's a bigger threat to job loss, which is automation. So again, 3 to 4 is a pair. Now, between 3, 4 and 1, 2, which will come first? Clearly, automation is introduced in 4 as a threat to employment. Therefore, it should come first. So 3, 4, then 1, 2. We start by saying politicians have for a long time focused on globalization as a threat to jobs, but the bigger threat may be automation. Why is it automation a bigger threat? Because while companies are increasingly adopting automation because of the benefits of production and productivity and efficiency, it leads to loss of jobs. Therefore, 3, 4. Okay, question 22 is another parajumble questions. And this is really one of the tougher parajumble questions that we had this particular slot. Okay. Now, we have to look at pairs as usual, and if possible, look at what's an opening sentence. Now, if you look at pairs, it is regimes of truth that make certain relationships speakable. So there's a connection between regimes of truth and relationships. Okay. Then, relationships are nothing without the communication that brings them into being. A Foucauldian approach to relationships goes beyond these conceptions of discourse and history to macro level regimes of truth as constituting relationships. Now, the only clue I have is this. these conceptions of discourse and history. Which conceptions? So there is a connect. Somewhere discourse and history has been mentioned, and that is mentioned here. Relational history in their analysis. So 2 to 3, there is a connect as a pair. Now, reconsidering micro practices within relationships that are constituted within and simultaneously contributors to regime of truth acknowledges the central position of power and knowledge. Complete bouncer. But 4 cannot be a starting point. That's all I can say. So what is the starting point? We know a pair is 2, 3. So 3 cannot be the starting point. 1 cannot be a starting point because it says it is regimes of truth that make certain relationships speakable. And regimes of truth are first mentioned in 3. Therefore, I will look at 2 to 3 as a pair. Why? Because conceptions of discourse and history, that is connected here. Interpersonal communication is connected to knowledge. Therefore, scholars should focus on relational history. And then it says we should go beyond these discourse and history to regimes of truth. And then 1, because 1 says, why do you need to go to regimes of truth? Because it is regimes of truth that makes it possible to speak about relationships. And therefore, I'll put 4 in the end. 2, 3, 1, 4. Very tough one. And I would say most important thing is we do our best with questions like this, or don't spend any time. What is very important is that you do not spend too much of time on these questions. It's okay if you get it wrong because there's no negative answer. But the risk is if you spend 4 or 5 minutes on this kind of question, then you're wasting time. That is the biggest risk. Okay. Question 23, another parajumble kind of a question. So let's see if we can find pairs. This is in response to countries which are pressurizing European museums to return their precious artifacts looted by colonizers in the past. So what is the response? What is in response? Okay, this is in response. Clearly, there's a connection to something that is given in the other paragraph, right? Museums in Europe are struggling to come to terms with colonial legacy. The connection here, we are talking about artifacts, that is items which are there in the museum, which have been brought to European museum by colonizers. So that is a connection to colonial legacy. Some taking steps to return artifacts, but not wanting to lose their prized collections. So that is a struggle. Some of them say you want to return artifacts, but if you do, you also lose their collections, the prized collections. So 3 and 2 seems to be a pair. Okay, the struggle that museums are facing is in response to demands from countries like Nigeria for return of artifacts. The 4th one says legal hurdles notwithstanding. Where are the, so clearly there is a legal hurdles mentioned earlier or somewhere else. That is mentioned in 1. Restitution of artifacts could face legal obstacles, as many Western museums are legally prohibited from disposing of their. So that's another connection. 4 and 1 are a pair. Sorry, exact opposite. 1 and 4 is a pair. Legal hurdles are first mentioned here, and then it says even without legal hurdles, notwithstanding, politicians and institutions would like to defuse the colonial time bombs, and they are backing the return of part of the. Despite the legal problems, politicians and institutions are saying we should actually give back these artifacts. Right? So 3 to 2, there's a pair. 1 to 4, there's a pair. Now you have to see which pair comes first. Okay, so clearly 3, 2 comes first because the basic issue is how museums are struggling with respect to artifacts which were originally looted by colonizers, and now the original countries, the colonized countries, are demanding back. You cannot talk about legal obstacles until you talk about what is the issue. The issue is returning of the artifacts. That is first mentioned in 3. Therefore, 3, 2, 1, 4 is the right answer. So this is a odd one out sentence. Again, for an odd one out, we have to try and find pairs. and then look at what is the central idea. What is the passage discussing? And then look for a sentence which is slightly different from the center idea. Now, here, one says a typical example is Wikipedia. So it's an example. So one cannot be the opening sentence. Where overwhelming majority of contributors are male and the available content is skewed to reflect their interests. So one is an example of a contest, of a concept, sorry. Okay, so what is the concept for which one is an example? We are saying the contributions to Wikipedia are mainly from males. So whatever content is there, it is looking from the male perspective. So 5, if technology merely reflects the perspectives of the male stereotype, that seems to be the connect between 5 and 1. Then new technologies are unlikely to accommodate the diverse social context from which they operate. So 5 and 1 is the first pair I find. Okay, so technology gives the perspective or viewpoint of the males. Example, Wikipedia. Why? Most of the contributors are male. Okay, now let's look at the other part. Gross gender inequality in the technology sector is problematic, not only for industry-wide marginalization of women, but because technology designs embody the values of the makers. So here we are not looking at how many women are working in the technology sector. That is not the point. It is going beyond that. It is saying, look, technology reflects the viewpoint of the male, because most of the makers of technology are male. Okay, so 3 seems to be the opening sentence. Now 3 is the opening sentence. 5 and 1 suit it, right? Because 5 and 1 are talking about the same concept, which is how technology reflects the viewpoint of the males. So 3, 5, 1 are okay. Now, fundamentally, I'm stuck with 2 and 4. Okay. Without diversity of thought and representation, society is left with distorted picture of future options, which may result in augmenting existing inequalities. 4 talks about technology while redressing unequal representation of the workplace. Broader social change is needed to address structural inequalities, current organization of work and employment. Unfortunately, no clear answer is coming between 2 and 4. Okay. So the problem with 4 is it is talking about representation of the workplace and broader social change with respect to how work is organized and employment is done, saying that there are structural inequalities here. But it is slightly off topic, because our topic is how technology reflects the viewpoint. The thoughts, the perceptions, the views which are there in technology are coming from the male perspective. That is, the diversity of thought and representation is not there. And that is connected to 5. Diverse social contexts are not being accommodated. Therefore, I will take 3, 5, 1, 4 as all connected. And the only one that is not connected is, 3, 5, 1, 2 is connected, and 4 is the one which is not.